Good morning. Welcome back. We are into the discussion segment. Young people are on board. We are ready to hear from them. It's the youth voices and, of course, the need for their participation in the governance structure in the country. What needs to be done to undo the damage politically done to this country? 2 years later, whether the handshake is the remedy point of the country's political problems, and, of course, the continuous killings of university students across the country since they make up a large bulk or a lion's share of the Kenyan population. We have a live audience in studio. Equally, we have a panel here ready to help us dissect issues that affect young people in regard to also employment, underemployment, and appreciation by the government. On my immediate right is Mark. Good morning. I appreciate your time. So is Sarah on my immediate right, equally sandwiched between Salim and Mark, and on my far right is Paul, and we equally have the live audience who will be seeking their sentiments in regard to the discussion on board here that we have. Gentlemen and a lady, good morning.
Morning.
Well, a lot has transpired, starting off with the governance structure and the need for participation of the young people in the process. The concerning point is the handshake that shook the country's political establishment, and there has been a form of a paradigm shift in regard to the handshake ending the political crisis in the country that, of course, is attributable to the 2017 elections. Starting off with you, Mark, do you think the coming together of Kenyatta and Odinga is a course correction for the country's problems, or more or less a case of the political recycling of players, and then post-2022 we are likely to have another handshake, post-2027 another one, post-2032 another one? And do you have that doubts, as is the case with the critics of the handshake who have been critical of the process ever since March 2018?
Okay, thanks, Ayub, for having me. I think as a youth, I am extremely interested in what's happening in our country. As it is, I would say the handshake, definitely from what we are able to judge, must have had good intentions right from the word go. But unfortunately, we are in an environment where sometimes, even though there might be good intentions of something, along the way it's likely to be metamorphosed into something else. So I'm still hopeful, and I'm keenly following as a youth, just to see what good things do we have to expect from the process as youths. So I think it's still too early to pop holes into all this entire process. What we need to do is to give our recommendations and just see how we can shape this into something better. Okay,
you will still remain optimist in regard to what might forthcome. Yes, Sarah, coming to you. Do you think it's the radical surgery point of our problems as a country?
Well, for me, what I believe is, before a handshake happens, there must have been an issue. And the issue here was there was a lot of violence, post-election violence, there was a lot of discrimination. So we don't really need to have to go through this process as a country so that we get to a handshake point. And that is why I disregard the handshake, because if we're looking forward to another handshake in post-2022 elections, that means we'll have to go through some sort of violence again. And therefore, for me, I'm not in support of the handshake.
Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, okay, Salim, if I may come to you. Optimist, of course, she's opposed to it. But when you look at the critical voices of the handshake, they said it has led to more division. Some are on the periphery more than they were even before the handshake. But the point is that there were uncertain times after the 2017 elections. In regard to balancing these two particular points, do you think it has done good for the country so far, where we are, and will it restore the damage done to this country by the political members?
Thank you. Just as she has just said about when we are in a good state right now as a country, just to say so, because of the happenings that are happening there in the past years. And for the handshake to happen, there was some problems there. And for this problem to be solved now, we need to have a transition that is based on honesty and respect in our lives as young people, especially when we are sitting here. We have a lot of expectation back there. And for this case, the handshake is one of the good things that happened in our country. And it happened because there was a kind of restoration of unity, love, and that is the restoration of unity, love, and affection that we lost in 2017 and 2016 happenings that happened. So handshake, I support handshake in either ways, but it has to be, it has to come with honesty among the leaders that are handling this one. And
do you think there's honest at the moment?
We don't need to judge right now. We need to see some transition in the way these things are happening, to see this document, to the implementation of it, to the formulation of it, so that we judge later, not judging now.
Okay,
yeah.
It's too early. We're still in the process of getting the reports.
Yeah.
And in regard to the task
there is
force.
a lot of politicization in the document,
yes.
so we don't need to judge it now.
Okay, yes, Paul, what's your take in regard to that? And do you think it's the injection point of the fresh political blood into what appears to be a system that is deeply corrupted, deeply rotted, and seems to be falling short of what's expected of any democracy, especially when we pinpoint our process to what has transpired in 1992 after the repeal of the Section 2A of the Constitution?
First of all, I really support the handshake. You know, this is the best thing that has ever happened in this country ever since.
How about the 2010 Constitution?
2010 is okay. It's the best at that time because we're still making some few changes here and there. But the handshake has brought in so much difference, as in it's brought in so much peace. At least right now, we can come and discuss about our issues. You know, whether people like it or not, you can never separate politics. Like, we cannot just discuss issues without politics. That can never happen in any country whatsoever. And when we're talking about politics, definitely there are people who are interested. There are people who want to get the political seat. There are people who want their issues to be. So, you know, we cannot sit back and blame these leaders that they are just trying to push their agenda. Because, you know, we elected them anyway. So handshake has brought in so much peace in this country, whether people like it or not, despite the fact that the people who are opposing the handshake are the ones who don't like Raila Odinga. Exactly. Let's just say the truth. They don't like Raila Odinga in the picture because he's come in the picture.
Who are the people, to be specific here?
Let's talk about the DP people.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is Kimani Ichung'wah's,
and
Alice Wahome's.
all of them. It's because they don't like Raila as a person, not what he stands for. You know, and it's because of those reasons that they go up just trying to depoliticize these rallies and just say they're talking about nonsense. Because this is the first time there's been rallies all around the country, people talking on what they want to be done. Normally, it's always the other way around. We're being told what they will do for us. But this time around, we ourselves were talking about what we want. So, in as much as young people don't appreciate and even other people don't appreciate, what would be the alternative?
Okay. Now, Mark, if I may come to you, picking up from that point, what's most important here is now, as we have taken the general view, the general perspective of the coming together, sort of the reconciliation between Kenyatta and Odinga, it's what's in store for the young people here. Despite mentioning of the Tanga wing of the ruling Jubilee Party, those again who are the proponents of the handshake, the Kileweke faction, how will the young people who are on the periphery at the moment make good observation of the political class, its conduct that is appalling at the moment, and perhaps be part of the next process, next political discourse? And my point here is that can this happen even as we expect the young people in this country to form a large bulk of the voting bloc come 2022?
Well, I think what's happening, I think from my own analysis, the intention of the handshake might have been just to initiate the perception of the Kenyan people on how leadership reflects the lives of the Kenyan person. So I think as a youth, my expectation is the handshake will transform the perception, the way we look at the representations that we have.
How do you take part then, in terms of creating that perception? What's your taking part in point here in regards to your contribution and the young people who often feel marginalized, sidelined, mishandled, so that you can be part of the process, you can be part of those who make the laws, who are the policy-making table, not awaiting for the creation of a path for you to roll on? Why not take part, and how will you take part?
And that's a good question. We've come from a history where youth generally feel they are never taken seriously, right? So through the handshake, and when you look at the aspect of inclusivity in the document,
Okay.
the BBI document. It tells you that even as a youth, you have a stake, you have a responsibility to run this nation. So it's just, to me, the way youths would partake in this, so we can take advantage of the transformations that we are seeing, is to generally have the perception that even as a youth, I can be taken seriously, I can go for elective seats, and I can still be elected as long as I have the right agenda for this country. Even if I don't go for an elective seat, I can still participate in policy making. I can still initiate certain programs that will transform the lives of the youth. So the top leaders are doing their part. What we need to take up now as youth is to transform our minds and have the confidence that we also have something to offer to this economy.
Okay, and later, of course, I'll come to you in regard to the economy, what needs to be done, because Kenyans are concerned about the state of the economy and the turbulent times that are, of course, of so much concern to the young people in this country. And coming to you, Sarah, the element about, as we finish up on this, the political part of it, because we need to discuss also other aspects of governance and economic issues. The aspect about the participation, being into the pool now, is for young people to swim. I mean, no longer waiting what needs to be done by members of the political establishment owing to the complaints. Now it's a time to write the country's political chapter, a new political chapter. How and what is the point of entry to the establishment and be part of the establishment instead of later complaints in future that we have not been part of the BBI process and now is the ample time, and how will young people take advantage and maximize on this available opportunity?
The thing here is, I believe Kenyan youth are the majority of the people in the country that understand their rights. And they're more educated on their rights, and that's why they tend to fight and be aggressive about what they want. And BBI is creating inclusivity for them. If it is to create inclusivity for them, I'm sure that the youth is going to take that opportunity and continue to fight for what they believe in. And it's getting easier as time goes by for the youth to be incorporated into this political issue and agenda most of the time. It wasn't the same way back then. We always knew it's the old people to rule, it's the old people to say what they want, yeah? So I believe this is creating now another opportunity for the youth, and they might be had now.
Okay, that opportunity, Salim, is it available? I mean, it hasn't been available if you talk to young people in the country. Some are questioning the entire aspect of what's the BBI. I mean, it means that there's no follow-up done. This is the ample opportune time, and the taking part in the process is very crucial, is very key, is very paramount, is very significant. How significant will it be again to the next chapter for the young people in this country to partake and be part of the process instead of the complaints that always come that we are sidelined, we are mishandled, we are on the left, we are marginalized?
I think this is the first time we have changed the transition on the way we move these matters concerning the politics of this country. And this time round, many young people are more involved than the previous years. And if you talk of, take an example of, I'm coming from an FCDC county, that is Turkana County, and I'm also part of the Secretariat in FCDC Youth League. And we have been concerned about the issue of insecurity, because it is we young people that are being killed back there at home. That when this BBI came to Turkana County, it is the young people who were the first people to submit this submission to the task force. Take an example of Mandera, take an example of Garissa, the issue of the teachers there. That is something that is affecting us young people directly. And that is why it is for us young people to play the part, to be the epicenter of these things, and now understand the way the government works, and with the use of these old men and young men, it is very difficult for us to channel through all those. But now we need to find our own channels on how we can play part at it.
Okay, and of course the partaking, the participation of young people is so enormous and the presence is felt, but what needs to be seen, what needs to be evident is how they need to make the crucial decisions in regard to now being part of the process, and now even more important is having the power to make the change in this country. That is the one voter's card for each young people in this country. If put in the right ballot box, it means that Kenya will have a new paradigm shift and a set of new generational leadership. Yes, Paul, your comments on this as we wind up on the political element, the governance issues, and the point of entry of the young people in this country. No more, I mean, in future, expression of concerns or uncertainty about what happens to the young people. They have the numbers. What needs to be done is being in the right psychological, political state. Are we in that state?
You know, really, for me, what I believe is we don't wait for opportunities. We go and grab them. You know, as young people in the previous generation, like Kina Raila Odinga, Kina Tom Mboya, they never waited for somebody to call and tell them, okay, take this opportunity. You are a young person. It's all up to us to take the initiative in different areas in this country, from Turkana to Busia to every place. Let young people decide this is what we want, and let's take a stand. Another problem is, no matter, sometimes we might know what we want, we might want to take a stand, but now these issues of tribalism, lack of morals, some basic issues that make us just look like the previous leaders. You know, if we want to stand out, we must have something that is unique, something that once we present, it's not like the rest of the leaders. What will separate us from the current generation of leaders?
How packaged are the young people then in terms of offering that, I mean, new dynamism, new test, new liquidity? Are they well packaged?
Yeah.
Are they done with ethnicity?
No, they are not.
So
They are not.
How do we do that and do that damage then?
In fact, ethnicity is not going to end even any soon. It's not even going to end with BBI. Because, you know, one thing, the parents of these young people planted tribalism in them. That is why you can hear somebody say, I cannot marry a Jaluo because I'm a Kikuyu. I cannot marry a Kikuyu because my mother told me. You know. So imagine if I am a young person in this Nairobi and I want to vie, I must go to my tribe's people to convince them first. And then another person from another tribe who is young will go to his tribe people. So definitely, sometimes I think we just need to correct our morals and take a stand. Vote for me because you believe in what I say, not because you know my tribe's people or you can speak in my mother tongue.
Okay.
If we can be able to end ethnicity as young people and elect leaders basing on what they can offer rather than what their second name is, then I think we will be good to go.
Okay, let me now seek to see the sentiments of our panel on set, and maybe I can go to the gentleman here on my far right, and I hope we have the mics here. We'll be getting the mics shortly. Yes, we'll be getting to them shortly because of the mics. I'm sure someone will come and pass them over to them. So they are coming. So I'd like to hear from the gentleman in the light green T-shirt. Later proceed to the only lady, for that matter, in our live audience, and equally take the sentiment of every one of you as you proceed. Yes, that's a mic. You can make up your point in regard to what we have just spoken about here on the panel level.
Mr. Moderator, the panel, and the congregation, good morning.
Morning to you.
First, may I pass my condolences to the late Msangweni MP family, the late Suleiman Dori. May his soul rest in peace. On matters youth and state affairs, I'll start directly by what has been discussed thoroughly by the four panelists. That is the handshake. Yesterday, Kenya celebrated 2 years of calmness and political inclusivity of the elite. But it is not something to be happy about. It is not something worth celebrating. It is not something that the youth of this country can be proud to say. Someone somewhere is celebrating 2 years of being jobless. A family somewhere is celebrating 2 years of only providing a meal a day. A young man somewhere is celebrating 2 years of not being able to be back to the university because of lack of fees. A young man somewhere yesterday never ate because they could not afford 250 bob to put that on the table. So it brings to us the need to ask the question of what good are the political decisions that are made? How frank is the conversation? How honest are our politicians? And what is in store for the rest of us who are not making part of the top leadership?
Okay.
Every question, as per what I know and what my intelligence confirms, should answer the question what, why, and how, and for whom. The handshake was done. because there was political unrest in this country. Before the elections, were Kenyans fighting? No. Before the elections, were there maybe, let me say, inclusivity of other tribes? Yes.
So in your view,
the handshake,
the problem,
is there still not inclusivity? Yes.
So the problem is the political class.
My
Because
problem,
prior 2017, there was inclusivity,
Exactly.
Kenyans interacted. The
Exactly.
divisions came in 2017. It took Odinga Kenyatta to reconcile to end the uncertain times. So the problem is the political class. How do you change the narrative then? You have the numbers, you have the powerful all silver bullet when you go to the ballot because of the numbers of the young people in the country. So how do you make change in regards to now seeing off ethnicity, your belonging, religious domain, and distance from Nairobi, and galvanize around a cause as young people and make that change? I mean, in the political class inject the fresh blood. How do you do that?
Okay. If we want to answer a problem at hand, we must understand the foundation of the problem. In 2017, on 8th of August, everyone woke up in the morning to vote a candidate of their choice. And that ended in the NASA-affiliated people feeling cheated by the system. That is the Chebukati-led team. So I was a very strong member of NASA.
Okay.
And in fact, the day that Raila won the petition, I was running in town like a crazy man. It brings out, we must ask, why did we go to the streets in the first place? Because a section felt cheated.
Okay.
So how do we solve the problem? Make everyone, in the next every 5 years of election, feel that their decision mattered.
Okay. Yes, if I may come to the lady at the front line in regard to your opinion, what you have discussed so far, and whether this can be the point of correction in terms of the damages already done to this country, and whether Odinga and Kenyatta are doing so in all honesty. I mean, do we foresee a situation where we are likely to have another handshake or handshake 2 post-2022? Because the precipitation factor has been the divisiveness and the uncertain times generated by the 2017 general election and the repeat poll on the 26th of October 2017.
Thank you for having me. First of all, I'd like to say the golden handshake was the right thing to do at the moment, but it should not have been there in the first place, because as Kenya, we should all be one. And the only thing that divides us is politics and tribalism. So it should not be there in the first place, because it all goes back to politics. Yes.
Okay, so it's all about political. Let me get to Seth Wasike. That is just behind you. If you can pass over the mic so that I can also take his sentiment, and any other person who would like to express his sentiment before I get back to the panel. Yes, Seth, your view on this, and whether you think it's perhaps the dose or the remedy for the problems in this country, and whether Odinga Kenyatta 2 years later have achieved what they intended to, despite, of course, what we see is the echo chamber of political concerns about the voices of criticism that continue to rise against the handshake.
To my point, what I think, you should only celebrate what has brought good to you and to your people. But if what you did never brought good to you and to your people, then there's no need of you celebrating. So I don't think Uhuru and Raila should celebrate their handshake, because it has instead brought differences in the country. It has instead brought, somebody said before elections we were all united. Before elections we were all together. But after elections we became dispersed. Yeah. So I don't think this thing should be celebrated. It has no importance to we as a country. Instead, it has led to a lot of iniquities rather than good to our people.
Okay.
So it's not worth celebrating.
Okay, worth celebrating. Yes, the gentleman in the suit here, in the blue suit here at the front line. What's your view in regard to the handshake 2 years later? We see all this avalanche of the continuing cases or the voices of criticism that continue to rise against the handshake, while on the other we have the supporters of the proponents of the handshake who say that it is the right injection for the country's political problem. And is it the right diagnosis?
I do not think so, that the handshake was the right diagnosis. Or well, if we think so, we may say that handshake was an injection of, or a transfusion of blood to a sick patient. Unfortunately, the wrong blood group. So we are facing death. And well, it calmed the political waters, we may say so, but calm waters, still waters run deep. So we expect the nation to sink deeper. Things are not well on the ground and with the people. So to me, the handshake was necessary then, but the course it has taken now is wrong for the sake of the future.
Well, why do you say so? What's your point of defense here in regards to why you see the handshake has gone off the wayward direction?
Well, we must first look at the people who did it. First of all, Raila is a master politician. This is not his first handshake. He did it in 97. After the 97 LDP Kanu Maja, he did it with Kibaki. He has done it with Uhuru. And if God gives him a longer life, we expect him to do it again. My view is this, that the fundamentals of a nation have not been addressed by the handshake. What are the fundamentals of a nation? One is the economy. We have seen many companies close down. We've seen corruption. Somebody becomes corrupt, a leader who has no morals and values, and goes for cleansing. And he's off the hook. So that's my point of defense. The handshake has not addressed the fundamentals of the nation. And there seems to be no interest and no push. We haven't addressed healthcare. We haven't addressed manufacturing. We haven't addressed food security. We haven't addressed basic things like shelter. But we have gone off to a political cliff and we will topple.
Okay.
That's my point of defense.
I'll come to Paul. Paul, I'll come to you. Let me seek the sentiment of the gentleman in the black suit near the, of course, our first speaker in the audience, and he has the mic. What's your view in regard to the BBI 2 years later? Is it an all-encompassing? Does it provide the umbrella required to house all the stakeholders in the country, including the young people? And is it providing the right shed in terms of what it offers and what it has offered so far 2 years down the line?
Okay, thank you very much for having me here. For the handshake, I would say that it's a joke. When you say that you have a handshake and a BBI that the document has not been produced for the young people to read and understand, then you hear a section of leaders saying that there is a hidden document that is somewhere else. The other one we have is just a decoy. It just proves you that there is something wrong. On matters of handshake and unity, you cannot say that there is a certain inclusivity when there is a certain of section leaders like Deputy President, who has a lot of masses behind him, and then you exclude him and say that this person, there is an inclusivity. There is
who excluded him? His boss? The president?
Following the discussion between 2013 and 2017, these two guys were together. Then after the swearing in of both the president of Kenya and the proclaimed the president of people, these people came together as a narrative being given that it is the handshake between two presidents. This one brought about throwing the deputy president by sides, which in my case, I don't see it as a political unity. Secondly,
why do you think that he was excluded? I mean, the point is that we need to know who excluded him. Why was he excluded? I mean, he said Raila Odinga reached out to him 3 times before Raila went to President Uhuru Kenyatta. And that is what he said on national TV. Therefore, is he excluded by his boss, or he was excluded by what I might term as Kenyatta Dinga?
The politics of Kenya has one definition, use and dump. And because the President Uhuru Kenyatta used Ruto between 2013 and 2017, and his use has come to an end, it becomes a point now, the political class that defined a certain system that we are the who's in this country. For example, when you go to the Luo land, the Odinga family claims to be the voice of Luos. When you go to Kikuyu land, they claim to be the voice of Kikuyu. The Kenyatta family becomes the voice of Kikuyus. When you go to Kalenjin land, the Moi family becomes the voice of the voice of Kalejins. Now when another system is trying to come up, they try to fight and condemn that. And that is the problem we are facing as youths, even the youths who are here.
Okay.
When they start fighting for their political space, because there is a certain system that is running, the system wants to suppress you so that they can use and dump. And that is the system that has been run since 1963.
Okay, well noted point. Yes, Paul, you have a point.
Let me just say something.
Yes.
You know, there's so much that has been said. One, people say, if I can start with being used, I mean, he was the deputy president. Where was he being used? Second in command of this country. He benefited, definitely. So let's stop just being unfair. There are people who are so mad because Ruto was not included in the handshake.
Who are the people who are so
people
mad
from
then?
Jubilee.
I mean,
who
to be specific?
From the
Jubilee has members
William
across the board. I
Ruto,
mean, Jubilee has members in Mandera, it
William
has members
Ruto
in Mombasa,
and his
it has in
support from
Kakamega, it has in
Central.
Meru, Muranga.
William Ruto
Who
and
are the
his-
people to be specific?
William
I just
Samoei
want
Ruto.
specificity. Who are the people?
William Ruto and his sympathizers from Central Kenya.
Do you mean the likes of Alice Wahome and Ndindi Nyoro?
Yeah, all of them. They're
Why
not
do you think they are
honest.
mad then when their boss is the initiator of the handshake? I mean, he means well for the country. That's what they told us.
It's because they hate Raila Amolo Odinga and they see Raila is next to power. That is the only reason be there. If it was another man like Musalia Mudavadi, they won't mind definitely. But because it's Raila Odinga, they hate this man.
Okay, what is the the contrast in terms of Mudavadi and Raila? I mean, Raila is not the president.
Raila has been standing for so much in this country, and you know, definitely from history, Kikuyus don't go with Luos. All the way from Jomo Kenyatta.
The point is,
all the way from Jomo Kenyatta.
The point is, okay, let me just be clear. Let's be clear for our audience, for us here, to be fair to audience, to be fair to you, and to be fair for the discussion. What makes Ruto allies and Ruto himself to be more worried when Raila is next to President Kenyatta than when Mudavadi is? So what's the difference between Mudavadi and Raila?
Raila is a great man, you know. He has a lot of political brains. He has experience. He's tactical. He knows how to play his cards.
Okay.
Unlike Mudavadi, he's experienced. Unlike Mudavadi. Mudavadi, you know, he's somehow slow, you know, before he thinks. But Raila Odinga is very smart. In that,
let's not be personal in the sense of how people think or what they are perceived to be.
Yeah.
Let's be fair to them because they have no right of reply here and are not on set for that discussion. But all the time that you made the point that they are somewhat disgruntled by the fact that Raila came on board.
Yeah, that is the only thing.
You know, it is very unfair when we talk about people in this kind of an avenue. But at the same time, you know, we should not be making assumptions all the time that Raila is this, Ruto is this. You know, also Ruto needs peace in this country. Ruto is for the peace in this country. And if Ruto is for the peace in this country, then he should also be part of this. No one has excluded Ruto in the handshake. And to say so, when they were in the Bomas of Kenya, they were all there when they were launching this document. And this document has really intensified some of the injustices that are happening in this country. If we talk of now the region of the marginalized communities in this country, we are able to articulate our problems. We are able now, not the issue of not telling us, we are telling you what we want to be done for our people. And that is, if you talk the issue of education, if you talk the issue of healthcare, the security in our country now, we are able to address our issues, the young people from those counties, and also the problem of our people. It's not about the issue of exclusion. This is an ambition. Ruto has an ambition of becoming the president in 2022. And that is why there is all this propaganda going all around and creating a lot of drift in the Jubilee government. And that is individual ambitions.
Okay.
To say
and
so.
of course, you can make those claims in a democracy because we are a secular society. And you have the right to be offended, the right not to be offended. Because that is what the Constitution came with. We made all the bargain. Sarah, if I may come to you. My point is here. How will the young people take advantage of the current infightings within the political establishment? When you cumulatively, add the ages of all the members of the political establishment, they come to around 65, 66. These are people who are just one cheeseburger away from a cardiac arrest. How do young people then stand up and take responsibility of this country, drive it to the better direction, form a party, and when it comes at the ballot then, shed off that ethnic cocoonism, the ethnic clothing, and vote in one line, meaning that by the close of the day, then the polls will be to the side of the young people in this country.
Yes. So there's one thing I'd like to remind people, is when Uhuru and Ruto were going into office in 2013, Uhuru made a speech and said, I'll take 2 terms, and by the time I've done and completed my term, Ruto atachukua ingine. So that tells you something. You might vote, you might do your part, and still not end up in office, and not get someone who you wanted in office if it's not Ruto, right? So when someone of political makes such a statement, you come to realize that there is no, you can't say there is inclusivity, you can't say there is transparency when I tell you I'll be in office. So no matter what you do, I'll still be in office either way. If it means rigging the elections, if it means pitting Kenyans against each other, I'll still be in office.
Okay.
I'll find my way to the office. So with the young people, what they can do is go back to the basics. You know what or when someone tells you I will be in office, you have to realize there's something wrong here, and we have to correct these mistakes. And as young people, as I say, they know their rights, they understand what they stand for. And most of the time, this is why they're resorting to violence, because they know they won't be heard. Because someone has already made a very stern statement that I'll be in office. So what I say young people do now is to continue fighting for their rights. Doesn't have to be through violence. Just state what you want and stand for it. Yes.
Okay. Mark, I'll come to you on the economic aspect, what needs to be done, and therefore talk to me about the element here. Yesterday we highlighted a very important story on the morning show about the tough economic times ahead, and the people who will be enormously affected are young people. They have no employment. The job market does not fit them. I mean, the economic opportunities are very scarce. The government seems to be not giving the young people the adequate attention they require. Instead, we're seeing President Kenyatta at some point standing up to say that nobody can, question my appointment of Mudia Wari, who is about 90s now, served as the vice president at some point. And therefore, I'd like you to give us that perspective as we go on break here, come back, continue with the discussion, and turn our attention equally on what's happening at the University of Nairobi following the riots that broke out as per the demonstrations staged by university students, especially in the capital, Nairobi, the campuses, the main campus of the University of Nairobi, in what appears to be a reportedly death of a colleague, of a comrade, as per their term, or the phrase that they use at the university level. And we'll be seeking the sentiments of the panel here on Set and Equally. Our live student, the number is 0791 excuse me, 478-990. Don't worry for my laryngitis. The hashtag on Twitter is NewDayK. The short SMS code is 40920, and we are coming back after the break here on the program. Stay tuned. Good morning, welcome back. We are into the second and final segment of the program here on New Day Kenya, hearing from the young people, the youth voices, the youth perspective, and what they have to say in regard to developments in the country, socially, politically, and economically. Mark, let's finish up on the economic aspect before we come to the riots. What happened in the University of Nairobi yesterday, which equally was a concerning point for the country at the Meru Technical, I presume, in Meru County, which was equally shut down because of the riots, and what we need to know about the concerns raised by the university-going students in the country's suicidal cases of mishandling by the security agencies, and what the management plus the parents plus the government needs to do in terms of the three-pronged approach to address the issues that they address. Talk to me about the economy, how young people are feeling, the brunt of what appears to be a mismanaged, mishandled economy, and how they need to lift themselves from the depths of despair to the great heights of hope. Is the way out entrepreneurship? Is the way out coming up with ideas in businesses? And how, in the event they come up with ideas, will they be facilitated by finances, and who will facilitate them in your view?
Yeah, in my view, and I'm sure so many Kenyans will agree with me, the way our economy is going, the direction our economy has taken is really worrying. Sorry. I'm just trying to look at the metrics over time. For the past couple of years, we've really seen a reduced growth in our gross domestic product.
That's the GDP.
The GDP. And I know what I'm interested in is, as a young person, what's my stake in this economy? So what I would encourage my fellow youth is that sometimes, even though things might not really be working so well in our country, especially if you focus so much on the politics, but I think we have a role as youth. We can venture into entrepreneurship, And I was just looking at a previous report on the ranking of countries in terms of ease of doing business. And even though we still have other issues we are struggling with as a country, but I think we ranked position 56 or something globally, which may not be the very best, but it tells you that things are getting way better. Right now you can register a company in less than 1 week, and your certificate of registration is ready, and then you can proceed and venture into your business. Okay. So even though we have complaints about things that are not working, there are a couple of things that we really need to appreciate. Okay. Just before I finish up, I was also just trying to look at the metrics on inflation. About 2 years ago, I think sometime in 2017, our inflation has shot up to, I think, almost 8% in 2017. After the handshake, which I'm really excited when I see some of my fellow youth really mad about it. We've seen that reduce significantly to currently, I think, as at February. As at January, it was at 5.7%. Okay. And those small things are what contributes to the growth of this economy.
Despite the lessening in terms of from 8 to 5, which is positive in terms of the growth. Yes. But there appears to be no money in the pockets of the common mwananchi, mainly the young people. Yes. Pesa iko wapi?
It's a concern. I also ask myself that.
That's what the president asked.
I'm in that league. No, I also ask that myself. But I think if we just change our mindset, the government will do its part. But we also need to change our mindset and also take advantage of some of these policies that are favoring us, just so we can become better people. I was just looking at the census results we had last year. Okay. And the youth constitutes to a total of I think 30% or so, even though those who are below 35 years are up to 75% of the population. So unless we change our mindset and venture into things like entrepreneurship, become better people, let's champion for better policies, we are not going to really transform this country. Okay. So we also have a role to play.
Well noted. If we are to uplift the country's economy, we are joined by Anyango and Seth Wasike on the panel here to also help us understand the topic that we are now delving into in regards to the riots that have been witnessed at the University of Nairobi yesterday night in regard to the reported killing of one of their colleagues at the Chiromo campus here in Nairobi County, and equally the same day what happened in Meru County at the Meru Technical School in regard to the shutting down of the institution and the concern expressed by parents as per the shutting down of the institution indefinitely by the university, by the technical school in Meru County, and how we need to address that, whether we understand the problems of the university-going students in the country, what are some of the problems that they are expressing, which we seem to be not turning our attention on, which we seem to be blinding ourselves to, and do we understand the real reality, the real picture on the ground? And here are some of the amateur videos that were captured last night at the University of Nairobi in regard to what transpired following the fires that were reported in one of the campuses here in Nairobi County.
Utakona?
Now, those are the amateur videos that were captured last night at the University of Nairobi following the reported killing of a fellow student, a comrade as they term, and in effect to the university problems that students do undergo. If I may come to you, Anyango. Okay. What is it that we need to understand? Give me a picture, an illustration, an interpretation for viewers at home equally to understand what are the problems which are deep lying that parents the government and the management of universities and higher learning institutions seem not to be paying attention to, but are affecting students?
Okay. I'm glad that the panelists today and the guests are much more the age of a university-going student, or they've just graduated not more than 3 years ago. These men are dressed in suits. They're dressed in the best-looking dresses that are covering depression, loss of hope, and burnt dreams. The scene witnessed at the University of Nairobi is basically an uproar of students who are fed up, and they want to send a message to the administration that this is what we want. And since you are taking so long to do it, you must know that you will not continue being in the same environment, experiencing same problems, while you live outside there having the best of your lives with what is supposed to make ours better. If we are to change anything in any system, we must understand its roots. The administration should go down to the student leadership, consult, get ideas, know what is really affecting them on the ground, and come up with a manner, a way, a procedure that will be followed in case that happens, to reduce maybe the time wastage that every time a student riots, a student riots, a student riots. People that joined UN in 2016 are probably still in first year or second year. What is the case? People are graduating 40-year-olds that should be having grandchildren. They're now starting life with a spoon and a jacket they bought at Gikomba. Why should it be so? This is the future of this country. The youth are what this country will be left to when the old people are long gone.
Okay. Seth Osike, what's your view into what happened as per what transpired in Meru County yesterday and late last night at the University of Nairobi?
I think one thing the administration of these universities should understand is that students are not in universities only to read and go for attachment or internship and do everything. But we are there to explore and realize what is in us. There are some of us who are born naturally just to fight for the rights of the underprivileged. There are some of us who are born naturally just to do some awkward things, yeah? And we have to realize them in university.
That awkward thing, I hope it doesn't include the setting up of the campuses on fire.
You see, when you set
which is the unfortunate bit.
When you set up the campus on fire, then that means somebody somewhere has not heard your cry. And therefore, that's a way of expressing your feeling.
But you don't have to be violent to express your...
No, you know, currently in universities, whenever you stand up and say something, whenever you stand up to say something, for example, us, the one who was killed in University of Nairobi, when he stood up to condemn...
That was the reported killing of the colleague.
Yeah, when he stood up to condemn the... what do we call them? This kind of behavior security guys have, yeah? They ended up killing him. You know, now universities are becoming like Kenya. You know, in Kenya, whenever you stand up to say no to something, you must be in fear of your life and get a place where you'll be safe. So it's becoming a norm also in the universities. That when you speak out to say something, then you are finished in such a way. Either you are killed, you are suspended, you are expelled, and everything. So one thing they have to realize is that we are not only in universities to read and learn. This is not a primary school, this is not a secondary school. It is a university where different communities come together with different perspectives to help each other achieve a certain goal, you see. For example, if I stand up today and say, let's say I'm from Kenyatta Universities, there might be some injustices in Kenyatta University. When I stand up and maybe call for a meeting with the Vice Chancellor or call for a meeting with anybody else, be sure I'll not be given a chance. But when I stand up and call my fellow students to say, comrades, now I'll be suspended and expelled. They say, you never included us in all that and all that. You get the point. So my point, or rather my issue, I would urge these administrative positions, these administrative holders, to mind us as the students. They should mind what we wish, they should mind what we want, and they should mind what we hope to have. Because you cannot host as an environment that is hostile. If you host as an environment that is hostile, we are forced to be hostile also to you by doing such kind of things.
Okay. Sarah, then give me a perspective into an understanding perhaps as to why, picking up from where Seth has left, about the need or what prompts students to, see or seek the alternative route of violence, in this case setting ablaze the campuses or the university property? And why do you think the management of institutions, higher learning institutions across the country, are downgrading, are not open to dialogue, do not want diplomatic channels for problems to be addressed? And why are they hard-headed to listen to their own students? What's the problem? Why do they seem to be on top of the hierarchy, but they don't want to hear from the down bottom of the hierarchy where the problems are and continue together? And that is perhaps, if we don't address, a ticking time bomb.
So I'll begin by saying that violence is never the way to go. And for students, one has been killed already, and he was killed through violence. And you'll see, like in the videos, there's a student who's carrying a burning poster, and through this, he's risking his life. So this student, not realizing that he's risking his life and the life of many, he's not doing anything better for that student who has already died. So what if he dies in the process? It's a loss for everyone. And to say that for the administration, not hearing students, first of all, Kenyans have a constitutional right to be heard, and there's a procedure for everything. And among them is, what do you call, striking? But it has not to be violent, a peaceful way of communicating your needs. But the thing is, when an administration doesn't want to hear you, this is when you see people angered, you see Kenyans angered. You go on the streets peacefully, because earlier that day, students in the same university had done a peaceful demonstration, and nothing was done. And most of the time when they demonstrate peacefully, you see the police retaliating, and there is still death that happen. So there's nothing peaceful about the process of seeking justice in Kenya. And what I can urge is the administration, there will never be development in Kenya for as long as those at the bottom are not heard. Because what are you supposed to develop? The problems of those at the bottom. So for those at the offices, from politicians to those in administrative offices in Kenya, this is what they should focus on, is listening and hearing out those at the bottom, the people they serve, the Kenyans and the normal Mwananchi. Yes.
More or less, the university is an outlook of how governance structure looks like.
Exactly.
There's air down, and then you go down the hierarchy. Mike, there are problems, of course, but the main concern here is we have students at the university, the higher learning institutions, who have concerns, and we have a management which seems to be not heeding to their calls, or is not concerned, or there's no attention to that. And then on the far end is the government, which now responds, will not want to hear from the start point of the problem, will hear from the intermediary, which is the management, and police resort to violence. Students are kicked out, they are beaten. That again leads to cases of disappearances and extrajudicial killings. How will these three key important elements, the students, the university, management, and the government, work in partnership to address issues of varsity education? Because this is where the future of this country lies. This is where research are developed. This is where important innovations are made. And once you suppress the voices of the young people, you don't want to hear from them at the university level, it means then that Kenya as a country will have a bleak picture.
Yeah, first of all, it's very unfortunate that we need to lose someone for such an important issue really to be heard by the stakeholders. So that's very unfortunate for our students. But again, it's very important to point out that as youth, even as we present our issues to the authorities to be heard, how well are we packaging ourselves? And I think we're in an environment where if you are to present your views and ideas and complaints, of course, to the authorities in a softer way, the so-called your followers, the comrades, might not take you seriously. They would want to brandish you as someone who colludes with the authorities. So I think we also have a responsibility as youth. If we want to be taken seriously by the people in power, if we want to be taken seriously by the so-called the older people, we need to package ourselves in a way such that we can be taken seriously, such that even if our leaders are to just go and represent our issues to the authorities without involving the violence, the issues will be way sorted before we even go to the streets. So it's very unfortunate that we really have to lose a life before a concern can be addressed. But as youths, we need to package ourselves in a way that we can be taken seriously. One more thing, for the authorities, and that's the university management, I think they need to be more objective, even as they run the universities. You know, times have changed, and the way management used to be done a couple of years back or a couple of decades back has changed over time with the dynamics. So right now they should be more and more ready to listen and be more accommodative.
Okay, well noted point. I'll go to, and then let me take another round to go to the audience and seek their sentiments as we head towards the last minutes of the program. Anyango, when you look at the higher learning institutions in the country, they were the harbor point, to say the least. I mean, the stemming points of people who stood up to the suppressive colonial regime in the late 1980s that led to the culmination of the multi-party democracy. They included Kabando wa Kabando, Miguna Miguna, there were very many, to say the least. Do our higher learning institutions still, under a democratic Kenya, under a constitutional democratic Kenya, is still the process point of Kenya attaining a democracy that respects the rule of law, where the principles are objective and meet global standards?
First things first. Our universities are not democratic. It is an island of bureaucracy surrounded by a national government that thinks it is doing the best to contain the radical students. When I was joining campus, a person could vie as long as they could. Just before I could settle in and focus on politics, it has been limited to 2 years. What does that suggest? The very people that are putting it to 2 are serving maybe 5th terms, 6th terms. But they understand that one radical student that has a voice, that has the comrades behind them, can cause an uprising that will lead to parading and showcasing of the rot in those systems. So they come up with laws to suppress critical thinking, to suppress analytical thinking, to suppress and torment the leaders and force them not to say a thing. You look at the demonstrations yesterday. So there was not a single UN student leader there. What was the case during the Babu times? He could have been there himself pouring the petrol and running, and they're giving the guy extinguisher to go block the eyes of whoever security guys were there. That was when politics was politics in campus. Miguna, they could do the most they could to tell Moi straight to the face, you're doing this wrongly, we are the future, and you can't leave to us a rotten government.
Okay, Seth, in terms of coupling that up with the governance issues in the country and the young people's participation, the universities need to be the learning point of better political process for the country. When you do it at the university, you can do it better at the national platform level because it comes with privileges when you're elected. I mean, why is it that the two relationship between the university and the political arena seem to be a relationship that's not withstanding time and seems to be weakening by the point?
One thing we'll understand here is that most of the university's administration fear opposition from the students because of what they do. Most of them do some injustices knowingly. I once said that in university, you are guilty until proven innocent. Not like Kenya, where you are innocent until proven guilty. So in universities, you are guilty until proven innocent. And that's why when you are found cheating in an examination, you'll be given a discontinuation before you're even heard by the Senate. You get? So the administrations majorly of these universities are the ones that have that fear in them of this opposition, because most of them have done so many injustices to students. So many of them have done so many wrongs to students. Now they fear if they stand up and say no, they'll be thrown away. You get? Okay. So they'll try and suppress you to the point.
Okay, yes, sir. What's your take on that?
I'll say I agree with him because I'm in Nairobi University as well. And most of the time, you see, in Kenya, first of all, the rule of law is not obliged to by the politicians themselves. So when you come to these administrations where the school is a public school, It's run by the government either way. So what happens is they put in laws, they put in rules that will tell you, you know, we hear you, we listen to your grievances, and we'll do our best. But when it comes to when Kenyans say kwa ground vitu ni different, it's actually very different.
At the university.
Yes, there is no following of that procedure, following of the rules that they set themselves, because they're always afraid that these students, once you teach me about my rights, I've been learning them since primary school. I understand my rights, and when you oppress me, I have the power to say no to you. And that is what the government fears, that is what the administrations in our schools also fear.
Okay.
So yeah.
Yes, Mark, your final comments.
Mine is just a concern, probably.
Okay.
As youth, and I think what I'm picking from my fellow panelists is that for us to appear like we are transformative, we need to cause havoc, which I think is very unfortunate, Ayub.
By any means necessary. By any means necessary. That is the only thing that is
which
left.
Excludes.
You know, when you all the choices that you have, all the options that you have been taken away, you use the only thing that you got. That is your energy, your brains, and the few coins that you have. So if dialogue has failed, I cannot continue with the same path. It will lead to nowhere. So what else do you use to maybe send the same message? What you have. They are only trying to use what they got.
Okay.
It is not as if they mean any evil or any bad to that.
So even, let me just finish my point. Thanks for also adding in that. I think even as we champion for most of these rights that we champion for, which is very important, we also need to be very keen on the message we are passing on to the coming generations. We'll end up raising a generation that is super violent, such that even your kid in your own house, if they want to present a complaint to you, instead of coming in a sober way and discussing with you as a parent, they violently express themselves. So I think I would want to agree with you that in the extreme cases where we've employed all the avenues like dialogue and all that, and it's not working, then we can resort to the havoc. But we can never give violence as the priority, as the number one.
And of course, we are here to always seek the peaceful path, and in terms of wanting to attain our needs. Yes, Seth, briefly.
He said you need to check the kind of life you are handing over to the coming generation. I also think we need to check the kind of system we are handing over to a generation. You know, because I'm a politician, it's obvious one of my kids will be a politician. I wouldn't want that when he comes to campus, he's being suppressed to a point that he can't speak anything. You know, so we have to break that system. We don't have just to look at how we are handing over them, that they'll come with violence and all that. No, we have to check all the corners.
Okay.
Yes.
And it's just all the available means. Let me get to Enoch Nkoba in the final line, in the navy blue jacket, and then I'll come to the gentleman here at the front line. And in the middle line, we have the gentleman there. And we have some good time to talk about governance issues, the BBI second year, and talk to me about the issues that concern riots and killings, extrajudicial killings, and enforced disappearances at the universities. And generally, what do you think of the governance model in the country?
Let me start first of all by addressing myself to the issue at hand, that is the riots that happened in Nairobi University last night. And I'll start by saying that as young people now, we must get other means of advocating for our rights and the issues we want solved. We must agree that the Constitution gives us the right to petition, the right to assemble, the right to picket, but the right to resort to violence and destruction of property is nowhere in the Constitution. It is illegal. We must agree that, first of all. Yes, administrations and governments have seen young people as threats, and they've always used other means to muzzle our voices. But we cannot resort to violence and destruction of property. Because if today I destroyed a property in Nairobi University, for example, and then my kid in future joins the same university, and maybe the government does not again invest in the property that I destroyed, what state of university will my kid find? We must also think about that. About the BBI, I'll say it is, let me first go back to 2 years ago where the president and the Right Honorable Prime Minister Raila Odinga shook hands and decided that this country should take a different view or a different direction from the ones we had in the previous quarter century, half century that the country existed. However, however good the idea was, it has taken a divergent route again, and it's now politics and politics and politics and politics. We've seen, instead of the country becoming better, we've seen the fight against corruption being weaponized in the last 2 years. We've seen a new form of forgiveness for corruption that is happening in Upper Hill. And I'm sorry to say so, that anybody that has a divergent view has to be muzzled towards that direction of a document called a BBI document, which is turning out to be not what we thought the handshake would turn into. Because the handshake, as they promised us, was to achieve greater unity amongst all communities, the 45 communities that we have in this country.
Are we on the path to that greater unity?
I'm sorry, we are not.
Okay.
We are more divided than we were on the 9th of March 2018.
Okay, well made point. And kindly, if you can hand over the mic to the gentleman in front of you in the more or less in the shirt, and let me get on your right. That's on the right end. Yes, I can get his sentiments. Yes, gentleman, what's your view on the discussion that we had here in regard to the governance structure in the country? 2 years later, the BBI, the baby seems to be at the embryonic stage, but the process largely underpinned by politics ever since March 2018. What's your take?
Okay, my take is the handshake took time at its right time, and it is because at that time we had riot because
your mic is not on. If you can put that on, please. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. The handshake took part in its right time because we had some violence which were taking place in Madare. There are some people who were killed there, and all through tribalism still continues, because you still find, like, at the moment there are those people who are still divided in terms of tribalism. They are supporting a person from their own tribe rather than uniting together for the greater goodness of the nation. And according to the current government, after the handshake, it did not bring like everything was all good, because after the handshake, it is when we find that oil prices were increased from for 8%.
Okay.
And also job opportunities, which were promised by the government, have not been delivered. That is why the youth will not look twice to vote in the same government again. And then there was issue about patriotism tax. The common mwananchi, Mama Mboga, is supposed to pay patriotism tax, in which it's not making any sense, because the amount of tax that we as citizens are paying is too much compared to other countries. And in other times, because that money is not used well, because leaders are corrupt. They use the money for their own good and benefit. And if you try to look well, I think Raila is an opportunist.
Okay. That's your view, okay?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Because
in what way?
Because looking at in 2007, he and the vice president and the president were on the same team, the ODM. And then at this time, when he came and made a handshake with the president,
okay,
that he has gotten to rise to that position where he was the opposition leader.
Okay.
But when he raised, now everything is not well.
All right.
For the common mwananchi.
Well made points. Let's hear from the gentleman with the mic in the in the middle row, and get his sentiments. Yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you so much for giving this opportunity to say something concerning the handshake. From my own perspective, the handshake has brought in a lot of negative things that we can talk about. Issue number one, we can talk about the handshake. Yes, President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila did the handshake and they agreed to come and work together. But despite the fact that we are not having an opposition in the government, leads to a lot of corrupt activities, a lot of things that are happening within the government, but we can't, me as an ordinary Kenyan, I'm not able to know what is the government doing that is not supposed to be done. And when we talk about the handshake, the cancer of corruption is still persisting. And we realize that it's the leaders, the same leaders who get involved in corrupt activities, and the issues are not addressed seriously as expected. So from my side, we still have a lot to do concerning the issue of corruption.
Okay. Asante sana. Well made points. I'll come back to the live audience. As you had a point, you wanted to respond to what the gentleman said? Yes.
The gentleman is very emotional about politics.
Mm-hmm. Why do you say so? Because of the Raila sentiment?
He almost cried while mentioning the name Raila.
In saying so, you equally are bringing to forth your affiliation.
I'm not bringing in an affiliation. But I'm only affiliated to my ideas.
Okay, but you in the audience said earlier, I'm very right on this, that you were a NASA member. You went around town celebrating on the eve of the Supreme Court nullification of the president.
Yes,
of President
I was
election.
affiliated to the idea of NASA, and that was from my thought.
In responding to him then, this is my point. I mean, he made the point that Raila Odinga is an opportunist. You want to respond to him, and how do you make your response a youth-affiliated response, in the sense that two young people will be talking, have a discourse, while putting aside your political differences and allegiances, because you are destined to take over this country?
Okay, that is why I'm headed to.
Go ahead.
This is my point. He's spoken about Raila being an opportunist, but I'll be here to defend whoever I voted for and who has been my president since 2007. And this is very right. Raila has been a victim of opportunists. In 2007, he won. In 2013, he won. In 2017, the Supreme Court upheld that he won. So who is an opportunist according to your dictionary?
Okay.
Secondly, I want to tell that man in black. He said that Upper Hill is the cleansing room of corruption in this country. The EACC is not at Upper Hill. It is not in Raila's office. The DPP's office is not in Raila's office. The DCI's office is not in Raila's office. The National Police Service of this country is not headquartered at Raila's office. Focus.
Okay. Yes. The gentleman in the blue suit, yes, go ahead. The gentleman in the blue suit in the front line, and then I'll come to Enoch Konkoba in the final, in the last line before we wrap things up here on the program.
I think for me, Ayub, to say for the truth is, let's not focus much more on the BBI, but what we say, the basics of a nation. And I would agree with Mark. Yes, the GDP and the numbers are on our favor, but what we need to do is first, as a nation, for us to rise up from where we are. Youth, we are saying we don't have jobs. The government, led by the president and the treasury, what they need to do is the Kibaki strategy called Economic Stimulus Program, ESP. Go back to Galana Kulalu. Ensure that we have enough food security. We have a lot of land. Let's take a drive from Nairobi all the way to Isiolo, much uncultivated land. Let's go back there and farm those things, farm those lands. Let's make them schemes. We need a comprehensive economic strategy.
Okay.
That's what needs to be done. And if I was President Uhuru,
yes,
I would humble myself, go to Mzee Kibaki, sit down and ask him, Mzee, advise me what I need to do.
Okay. Get the mic to the final comments to the gentleman just behind you in the shed so that we can hear from him what he wants seen as done and what's your view on what you have discussed. Yes, the gentleman on with the sheds just behind the gentleman in the blue suit who just made his remarks.
Okay, naitwa Omondi, mimi ni msanii. Ningependa kutoa kidogo kwa hiyo topic. Niwalete kwa hii topic ya wasanii. Point ya kwanza ni naomba kila county government itupe nafasi kama wasanii tujimarket tukitumia hizi bango. Tunaingia town na hizi bango tukiomba support, na tukifanya hivyo tutajiinua. Pointi ya pili, ningeomba Ezekiel Mutua fanya kazi poa, awe anasema tumefanya kitu poa, si kubantu ngoma za watu hivi hivi. Okay, point ingine ni ningependa kuomba gava watufungulie studio kwa kila county, ndo kila msanii aweze kuwakilisha talanta yake, na pia tusaidie kufanya kitu kama marketing.
Okay. Asante sana. Thank you so much for the well made point in regard to what you want done, and because of time we have to end the program. I see we are in the heated stage of the discussion, but all the same though, thank you so much for coming to our live audience, equally one studio, and to our panel, Onyango, Seth and Sarah and Mark who are here, and the other panel who was here. Because of time we need to be running things, we need to be wrapping things up here on the program, unless you have some brief comments to make as we shut things. Yes, starting with you.
This is my parting shot. According to the BBI, the age of 15 to 24 is at 26 point something %. And the global bracket of 15 to 24 makes just 15 point something %. So we need to realize how much we have in our hands and exploit it fully. And the only place that you can exploit it without being exploited back is with the right thinking going into the ballot.
Okay. Yes, Seth.
Yes, thank you. Just to end up, I'd like to advise my brothers and sisters that in the current world, let us deal with facts and let us deal with actions. Let us not deal to the political affiliations we have, and let us not deal with the idealistic affiliations we have, because ideas are not what are on the ground. My brother said he's so much affiliated to Raila that he does not see the bad things he does. As a Kenyan, even old Shosho knows what Raila has done and what Uhuru has done. So let us not deal with where we are affiliated. Let us not look at where we are affiliated politically, but let us look at facts and actions.
So here's Sarah.
For me, is to say that Kenyans to realize the voice they have, the impact they have when they go to vote, when they go to choose who they stand for, and forget their tribes and leave everything behind that is unnecessary when it comes to who should serve Kenyans at large.
Okay, yes, Mark.
My parting shot would be, even though as youth we may have different opinions, we may disagree in so many other things, of course including BBI, but when we speak with one voice, when we come together as youth, we can do so many things and eventually transform this economy into one of the most admirable ones. So I would encourage all of us to speak in one voice and champion for one agenda.
Oh, all right. And that's where we come to a close here on the program. Thank you so much for coming on board. Of course, this is an ever-ongoing discussion in terms of how expansive it is for young people, how seem to be on the periphery in terms of the feeling of sidelining and the marginalization they feel from the government, and what needs to change in terms of the policy that targets them here in the country. Thank you so much, and thank you to our live audience. And we equally are turning our attention on the coronavirus crisis across the globe, even as the government puts up measures with regards to the directive issued to the county administrations across the 47 counties of coming up with quarantine centers in case of any eventuality. And of course, the crisis that continues to deepen globally as China continues to manage the numbers, but Italy is the second most affected country in the world. It overtakes South Korea with more than 7,000 cases, and the entire country is under lockdown, 60 million people. And the city of Milan, if you go to Italy today, is almost unrecognizable. And that's as per the directive issued by the Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte. And you can see the presence of the military in the streets of Turin, Milan, and other cities in Italy. I'm Ayub Abdikadir Abdi. We'll see you tomorrow here on New Day Kenya. Good morning.